Brian Kelly was speaking yesterday, and one of the things that jumped out on Kelly speaking to the media yesterday was that Jack Bech's name came up, and it's good to hear Kelly really, whether it's his fault or not, he is the one that publicly takes the bullet and says he's got to be better, blames himself, says that it starts with him. In fact, he says yesterday, and this is Brian Kelly's exact quote on the SEC teleconference, he said, I think quite frankly, as coaches, and it starts with me, we've got to get him more involved. And you're going to begin to see that take place this weekend, Kelly said yesterday. He went on to say, Jack's been doing everything he's been asked of. There shouldn't be any narrative out there that he hasn't or that he's injured. So, look, I think that getting Bech into the fold, first, let's be honest about Jack Bech and what he's been going through. He had a big setback in fall camp. And without that setback, I don't know if this discussion's happening. And whether that's fair, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, we can all debate that. But one thing that we can't debate is that LSU's wide receiver production, outside of the, kind of where's Kayshawn narrative, and he's kind of been, weaved in and out of the first 3-week game plans, and maybe not enough for himself or some of the coaches or for some of the fan base. Outside of that, right? I mean, Malik Neighbors has made huge plays. You can't take Jeray Jenkins off of the field. Mason Taylor is obviously settling in as the wide receiver. If I had any complaint about the wide receivers at this point, it would be the rotation of just getting guys like Jack Bech and Brian Thomas more involved, right? Thomas takes advantage of every opportunity that he gets, and you can see his confidence is just brimming, man. I mean, like, he wants the ball. You can see him out there almost just begging for opportunities, and when he gets it, he makes the most of it. We were in the stadium last week. Kelly and I were sitting in a great perspective when Jack Bech got into the game. I know he didn't get in a lot.
3 plays.
But he got in for 2 plays in the first half. And the first play that he was in there, he ran a beautiful out route to the sideline, to LSU sideline. And Jaden Daniels looked right at him and for whatever reason just didn't pull the trigger. He didn't throw it to him. It was one of those plays that we've talked about with Jaden Daniels where he settles in on that 4th, 5th step of his drop back, and he's got his mind made up. I'd venture to say he's probably got his mind made up when he's breaking the huddle, like when he's walking to the line of scrimmage of, I know what I'm going to do. I'm running, or I'm throwing it to Kayshawn, or I'm throwing it to Malik. Some of that stuff happens with quarterbacks when they're uncomfortable in passing situations where they predetermine what they're going to do. And Jaden Daniels looks at times like he's predetermining what's going on out there. And I thought that Bech shook this guy up. What Bech does, he's a great route runner. He catches everything. And then, the yards after the catch where you got to put the ball in his hand. That's the thing about Bech is that don't just throw him out there. Like, don't give him reps to put him out there and get him on the field and soothe everybody by saying, look, he's playing. Like, give him the ball. Put the ball in his hand. I mean, it is undervalued or under-talked about. We didn't talk about it enough last year of just how big of a playmaker he is, right? Like when the ball was in his hand, good things happened. I believe it was his first 11 catches of his freshman season went for first downs. Big deal? No, but just a stat that tells you put the ball in his hands and good things happen. Right? For an offense that's kind of struggling to find an identity, I'd venture to say that Jack Bech is that's one of the best friends that a quarterback can have. He's going to catch everything. He's going to run great routes. And, I mean, he's going to give you that yards, on the stat line that look real good. So,
and this was kind of my thinking and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but there's an avenue for Jack Bech to get on the field. It's just not the position it feels like that they want to utilize him in. Mason Taylor's a freshman playing tight end, and I was going back and forth a little bit with Stephen Miller. If you want to put Bech out there, he can play that H-back tight end role. And Klasky was saying he's not like the best blocker, but he can block. Like he's actually a wide receiver. He is a wide receiver, but you saw what they did with him as a freshman at LSU, wherever he was kind of you have to put him on the field. And so whether he was utilized like an H-back or at tight end or a wide receiver, Bech was out there because you needed him. Now, Mason Taylor, it feels like there's a lot on his plate. Bech could kind of swap in and out. You don't want to determine what you're doing based off personnel, but it feels like if Bech could throw a couple blocks, then you start utilizing him in that tight end role a little bit, get Mason Taylor more integrated and more comfortable because he has to do a lot right now because that offense is based almost solely around the tight end. Like a lot of what they do, whether it be motion or whatever and blocking, like that's what the tight end's doing. Bech can do that, and it might be just an avenue to see him more because he's too good of a player to not have him on the field.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's the thing about him is that, look, I know that their wide receiver room is dripping with talent, but there are guys that have to get roles and reps, and Bech is one of them.
Yep.
He's got to be in the game plan every week because he just makes you so much better. And the thing about him is he's infectious, man. Mm-hmm. He makes one play and you can see the huddle. You can see people around him. People start to swell up. People start to, say, okay, look at Jack. He's got this infectious type of energy to him where once he makes a play, it kind of opens up the game for other people. And I think, that's a testament to, really good players, really, good guys, really well-respected players. I think, one thing that stood out to at least me when all these guys were walking through this studio in the offseason was that it didn't matter what position group you were in. It didn't matter what side of the ball you played on. It didn't matter where you were from. You liked Jack Bech. You know what I mean? Like, we had a watch party for the national championship over here, and Jaquelin Roy, Major Burns, Jack Bech, am I leaving anybody out, came over here and watched the game.
I think Malik.
Maybe Malik Neighbors, and they were all, they all loved one another, but you could tell, like, the kind of the glue in the room was Bech. And then about 2 weeks later, him, Will Campbell, and Walker Howard come through here, and that's when, he had the pit bull just kind of running around the studio, and everybody else is watching. And Campbell and Howard are like, they're talking about him almost like, like he's just like the brother, like kind of like the goofy brother, like they love the guy, but they want to kick his ass, but they'll watch his
dog.
Yeah, right. Like they'll watch his dog just because they feel sorry for the dog, because he's got to deal with Bech. They just kind of sit and laugh at Bech, what I mean? But Bech, he loves that role, he embraces it, and when he's around everybody. When everybody's in the room, everybody's kind of watching him, which I think that says a lot about these alpha elite athletes. That's always kind of fascinated me about LSU's locker room is who kind of runs that locker room. There's stories of, Patrick Peterson would tell me that Tyrann Mathieu started to take over the locker room like midway through his freshman season at LSU. Like, it wasn't his sophomore year where everybody that started to happen his freshman year. And leadership knows no age. Leadership knows no classification. Sometimes that just kind of happens naturally because there's leaders and captains in every year. But sometimes you'll find one that's, show up and this kid's 18 years old and everybody in the locker room's watching him and following him. And Bech has that quality to him. And I'm not saying that that's why you got to play him, but he's also a dog of a football player. And that's why you got to play him, is because when the ball touches his hand, good things happen. And I think LSU's offense has been looking for a lot of good things to happen. In some of these scenarios where you look like you got two left feet and you look very awkward of just trying to find something easy to do, Bech to me would be that option. Of just kind of a simple, play action, roll out, cut the field in half, and run him on some type of like underneath out route and just like flip it to him. You know what I mean? Like just put the ball in his hand and let him run away from somebody, run over somebody, make somebody miss, get a first down, get up, get the crowd hype, have everybody jumping on him, slapping him in the head, everybody high-fiving him, and then watch the next 3 plays. Watch John Emery make a play. Watch Kayshawn make a play. Watch Mason Taylor make a play. That's the type of stuff to me that happens when Bech is on the field. And not every player has that quality. You know, not every player has the quality where he makes everybody around him better. The obvious example is Burrow, but Burrow's an obvious example because he touches the ball every play, right? He's a quarterback. But there's more to it with Burrow of just his personality, his confidence that people see, and it just rubs off on people. And Bech has that quality to him where you see him succeeding, you see him getting hype, you see him making plays, and it kind of makes you want to, you know, buckle up a little tighter. Tighten the chin strap and say, all right, man, like, give me the ball. Like, I want to play. Like, put me in the game. And I think that's, you know, that's what they've also kind of been missing with Bech not being there. You know, it's kind of that energy, right?
Oh, juice.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. At UCLA last year when he makes the one catch, that was like that's one of the one moments outside of Kayshawn just ripping through the Rose Bowl that stands out. Of him just, you know, like Jack Bech, man, look at this kid. Look how contagious his energy is. You know, I mean, it's almost like you can see his eyes no matter where you are in the stadium. Like, that's how dialed in he is. And I don't want to make this a Bech love fest. I just think you got to get him in the game. And I think everybody agrees with that. And Brian Kelly obviously agrees with that. And I think you'll see that happen here pretty soon.
Well, it's almost essentially the same thing that happened with Booty in Southern, where it was like, look, we missed the mark in game one. Let's get Booty going. Where Southern, he gets like the first 5 targets or something like that. Wherever you get him involved early and you say, look, you're an essential part of the offense. This could be that same get right game for Jack Bech against the Lobos, where you're not. I know they're not going to look past the game, but it's an opportunity to use some of the things that you've seen and correct some things where you get right and get going early. You know, Jaden Daniels, they made a point for him to stay in the pocket and throw it against Southern just so you can get comfortable doing it. You'll probably see a lot of that where LSU's the better team. You get to work on some things in a game setting, and getting Jack Bech involved is probably like top one on the priority list.